My name is Veronica Stone. I'm 38 years old, and until recently, I believed stability was something you could build if you were consistent enough. Not emotionally, not blindly, but deliberately. I work as a regional sales manager for a medical supply company. My job keeps me on the road 3 days a week, visiting clinics and small hospitals, making sure contracts hold, relationships stay intact, and numbers make sense. The rest of the time, I work from a home office in the spare bedroom. It's not glamorous, but it's predictable. And I like predictable. I built my life the same way. That included my relationship. Caleb Hayes is 36. We've been together for 9 years. Not married, but everything else looked the part. Shared mortgage, shared routines, a house that felt like something we had constructed piece by piece over time. We have a daughter. She's 6. From the outside, we made sense. 2 stable incomes, no dramatic fights, no chaos. The kind of relationship people describe as solid. And for a long time, it was. But stability has a flaw no one talks about. It hides slow fractures. Caleb has always had a sharp personality. When we first met, I called it confidence. He was quick, observant, the kind of person who could read a room in seconds. Over time, it started to feel different. More precise, more targeted. He would correct how I loaded the dishwasher, adjust how I spoke in front of his friends, make small comments about how my job wasn't as impressive as some of his college friends' careers. Not loud, not aggressive. Just constant. I didn't escalate it. If he crossed a line, I told him once, calmly, and moved on. I don't believe in dragging arguments out just to prove a point. But something about it stayed. Like background noise you eventually stop noticing, until it gets louder. About 3 months ago, he brought up his ex, Laura. I knew about her. They dated in their 20s, long before we met. Every time he mentioned her in the past, it was dismissive, immature, unreliable, someone he had outgrown. That changed. Suddenly, she was coming up in conversation every week. She moved back into town, he said one night, scrolling through his phone. She's not doing great. At first, I didn't think much of it. People reconnect. It happens. Then it became frequent. She's been having a hard time since the divorce. She doesn't really have anyone here. She's struggling more than I expected. Each version painted the same picture. Laura was alone. And somehow, Caleb was the only one who could help. The first time he said he might go see her, I assumed it meant something simple. Drop off groceries, help her find a therapist, a conversation over coffee. Instead, he stood in the kitchen, arms crossed, tone already defensive, and said, "I'm thinking about staying at her place for a couple of weeks, just until she stabilizes." I didn't react immediately. I wanted to make sure I heard it correctly. "Staying?" I repeated. "Yeah," he said, like it was obvious. "She needs support, real support. Not just someone checking in." I set my glass down carefully. "Why you?" I asked. He smiled, that tight, controlled smile he uses when he thinks I'm missing something obvious. "Because I'm the only one who understands her." There it was. Not a request. A justification. I kept my voice even. "And no." Not loud, not emotional. Just no. He blinked like he hadn't expected resistance. "We have a child," I continued. "We have responsibilities. If she needs help, we can find her resources. Together." He exhaled sharply, already irritated. "So I'm not allowed to help a friend now?" "That's not what I said." "Sounds like it." I met his eyes. "I'm not comfortable with you staying in another woman's home, especially an ex. Especially for weeks." He laughed. Actually laughed. "Wow," he said, shaking his head. "You're really going there?" "I'm setting a boundary." "You're being insecure." There it was. That word, dropped casually, like he'd been waiting to use it. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm being clear." He rolled his eyes, turning away like the conversation bored him. "God, Veronica, not everything is about control." The way he said control made it sound like a diagnosis. Like I was the problem he had been quietly tolerating. That was the first moment something shifted. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just enough. "I'm not comfortable with this," I repeated. He didn't answer. That night, he slept on the couch. Not because I asked him to. Because he wanted to make a point. The next morning, he moved through the house like he hadn't slept at all. Heavy sighs, short responses, a performance of exhaustion. "You should think about what kind of partner you want to be," he said while pouring coffee. I looked at him. "I already know," I replied. "The kind that doesn't pretend obvious boundaries are optional." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Not directly. Instead, over the next few days, he started pushing in smaller ways. He brought it up while I was making dinner, while I was helping our daughter with homework, while I was on a work call. Always casual, always persistent. Like he was trying to wear the boundary down until it didn't exist anymore. When I asked him to stop ambushing me with it, he snapped. Maybe stop making everything about your feelings. Then the details started changing. At first, Laura had the back injury. Then it was surgery. Then anxiety attacks. Then her apartment was a disaster and she needed someone organized. Every version had one thing in common. She needed him, specifically him, and he was the only solution. He also started guarding his phone more. Not dramatically, just enough that I noticed. Have you been talking to her a lot? I asked one evening. He didn't even look up. Of course, why wouldn't I be? Because it feels like you're prioritizing her over us. That's when he said it. God, Veronica, you're being pathetic. In front of our daughter. Like it was nothing. Something in me went quiet after that. Not hurt, not anger. Just clarity. If you leave to stay with her, I said calmly, you're doing it as a single man, not as my partner. That got his attention. He looked at me then, really looked. For a long second, he didn't say anything. Then he smirked. I'm not going to blow up my life over a few weeks. 2 days later, he packed a suitcase. Actually, 2. Neat, organized, methodical, like he was going on a trip. Our daughter sat at the kitchen table, coloring. Is Daddy going somewhere? She asked. Caleb crouched beside her, smiling. I'm helping a friend who's not feeling well, he said. Sometimes adults have important things to do. I watched him say it. Calm, certain. Like this was reasonable. Like this was normal. I asked him one last time. Do you understand what you're choosing? He zipped his suitcase without looking at me. You're being dramatic. I told you what this means. He shrugged. Then consider whatever you want. No argument. No shouting. He kissed our daughter on the head, didn't touch me, and walked out. Just like that. The first week without him was quiet. Logistically harder, yes. I adjusted my travel schedule, moved client visits to virtual meetings, asked my manager for temporary flexibility. He agreed. At home, I handled everything. School drop-offs, pickups, dinner, bath time. It was exhausting, but simple, contained. Caleb texted occasionally, not to ask about our daughter, mostly to complain. She's a mess. I didn't realize how bad things were. I'm exhausted. Every message framed him as the one sacrificing, the one carrying the burden. There was never any acknowledgement of what he had actually done. I asked once if he was coming home soon. His reply came minutes later. Stop pressuring me. Healing takes time. Healing. Like he was on a mission. By the second week, he stopped coming home entirely. By the second week, Caleb stopped coming home entirely. At first, it wasn't obvious. He had said he would come back on weekends, that he'd split his time, that this was temporary. Temporary has a way of dissolving quietly when no one enforces it. Saturday came, then Sunday. No knock at the door, no message asking what time our daughter woke up. No casual, I'll swing by later. Nothing. On Sunday evening, I texted him once. Are you coming by? The reply came an hour later. I'm staying here tonight. She's not doing well. No apology. No explanation beyond that. Just a decision, already made. I stared at the message for a long second, then put my phone down and finished cleaning the kitchen. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I was starting to understand that this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a pattern. Over the next few days, the pattern solidified. Caleb's messages became less frequent, but longer, more detailed in ways that didn't quite line up. She had a panic attack last night. Her place is worse than I thought. I've been cleaning all day. She can't be alone right now. Every version positioned him as essential. Every version justified his absence. Meanwhile, our daughter started asking questions more often. Is Daddy coming home today? I kept my answers simple. I don't know yet. She accepted that, the way children accept things they don't fully understand. She filled the gaps with routines, homework, cartoons, brushing her teeth at exactly the same time every night. Children adapt, but they notice. By the end of week 2, Caleb hadn't spent a single night at home. Not one. The weekend visits he mentioned so casually had disappeared without acknowledgement. When I brought it up, carefully, directly, his response was immediate. Stop trying to guilt me. I read that message twice. Guilt. That was what he thought this was. I'm asking about consistency, I replied. Not guilting you. You're making this harder than it needs to be. That was the last message I engaged with that week. After that, I stopped responding to anything that wasn't directly about our daughter. If he asked about school, I answered. If he wanted to know about a doctor's appointment, I gave him the information. If he drifted into anything else, complaints, justifications, subtle accusations, I ignored it. At some point, the conversation shifted again. Not in frequency, in tone. Around week 3, his messages stopped being about Laura. They started being about me. You never really supported me emotionally. You always prioritized structure over connection. You made me feel like I had to fit into your system. I read those messages without reacting, not because they didn't matter, but because they didn't match reality. This was revision, a slow rewriting of the past to make the present make sense. Laura, who had once been immature and unreliable, was now misunderstood. I, who had been stable, was now controlling. It was efficient, emotionally convenient. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself over text while he was living in another woman's apartment. That wasn't a conversation I was willing to have. Instead, I started documenting everything. Not obsessively, just consistently. Dates, messages, the timeline of when he left. The fact that it was voluntary. The fact that our daughter had remained with me full time. I wasn't doing it out of anger. I was doing it because something in me understood that this wasn't temporary anymore. It just hadn't caught up to the surface yet. At the end of the third week, I asked him directly. No buildup, no softening. Do you have any intention of coming home? He didn't text back. He called. I let it ring once before answering. Hey, he said, his voice tight. Not warm, not familiar, just controlled. I asked a question, I said. I need more time. There it was again. Time. How much time? I don't know, he snapped, irritation creeping in. She's having setbacks. I leaned against the counter, steadying my voice. You've been gone almost a month. I'm doing something important here, Veronica. You could at least acknowledge that. I am acknowledging it, I said. I'm asking if you're coming back. He exhaled sharply. Why are you making this so difficult? I let that sit for a second. Then I asked the only question that mattered. Are you in a romantic relationship with her? Silence. Not short. Not awkward. Long. Deliberate. The kind of silence that answers before words do. I can't believe you would even ask me that, he said finally. I didn't move. That's not an answer. You're being paranoid. A man living with his ex for nearly a month doesn't look ambiguous from the outside. His tone sharpened instantly. If you trusted me more, I wouldn't feel pushed away like this. I closed my eyes briefly. There it was. The pivot. This wasn't about what he was doing. It was about how I was reacting to it. I'm not going to debate this, I said quietly. Of course not, he shot back, because that would require you to admit you might be wrong. I ended the call. Not abruptly. Just done. The next morning, I contacted a family law attorney. Not to file anything immediately, just to understand. To get clarity on where I stood. We spoke for 40 minutes. I explained the situation factually. No emotion, just sequence. He listened. Then he said something simple. The fact that he left voluntarily and your child has remained with you full time, that matters. It wasn't reassurance. It was information. Maintain stability, he added. Avoid emotional escalation. Don't change locks or do anything drastic. Let the situation speak for itself. I thanked him and ended the call. I didn't tell Caleb. There was nothing to tell. By week 4, the house had settled into a rhythm that no longer included him. Our daughter stopped asking every day. The question became occasional, quieter. Do you think Daddy will come back this week? I don't know, I said again. And for the first time, I felt something shift inside that answer. Not confusion. Not hope. Something closer to acceptance. That same week, he stopped mentioning Laura entirely. No more complaints. No more updates. Just occasional check-ins about our daughter. It was cleaner on the surface, but underneath it felt like something was being withheld. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, everything changed. I was home, working through a block of virtual meetings. The house was quiet. Our daughter was still at school. I heard the front door unlock. For a split second, I thought I had forgotten to lock it after taking out the trash. Then the door opened, and Caleb walked in. One suitcase, one tote bag. He looked different, thinner, tired. But there was something else in his expression. Not regret, not relief. Something closer to satisfaction, like he had already decided how this conversation would go. He set the suitcase down in the hallway. We need to talk, he said. I closed my laptop slowly. Go ahead. He didn't sit immediately. He stood there, hands on his hips like he was preparing a statement. Things with Laura got complicated, he said. I didn't interrupt. She's more unstable than I realized. She's been leaning on me too much. Too much. I nodded once. And? He exhaled like this part required effort. I've been thinking. I have responsibilities here. To you. To our daughter. Now he sat down, across from me. I'm ready to come home, he said, and fix things. Fix. Like this had been a temporary inconvenience. Under one condition, he added. I waited. You need to stop being controlling. There it was again. I studied his face for a moment. Are you still in contact with her? I asked. Yes, he said immediately, just to make sure she's okay. Are you involved with her physically? His expression changed instantly. Sharp, defensive. Why are you so obsessed with that? Because it matters. No, it doesn't, he snapped. You're making it matter. I didn't respond. He leaned forward slightly. There's something else, he said. I felt it then. Not anxiety. Not fear. Just clarity, arriving before the words. He rested his elbows on the table. She missed her period, he said. I didn't move. She took 2 tests. They were positive. Silence settled between us. Heavy. Still. She's pregnant, he finished. I nodded slowly. How far along? About 6 weeks. I did the math automatically. Backwards. Precise. Unemotional. We hadn't been intimate in over 2 months before he left. The timeline didn't just not fit. It couldn't. I looked at him. Is there any possibility this child is yours? I asked quietly. He didn't hesitate. No, that was it. No confusion. No gray area. Just fact. I stood up. Not abruptly. Just finished. Pack your things, I said. He blinked. What? Pack your things and leave. For the first time since he walked in, something in his expression cracked. You're overreacting. No, I said calmly. I'm responding. We can work through this, he insisted. People make mistakes. How many nights does it take? I interrupted softly. Before it stops being a mistake. He didn't answer. I walked to the front door and opened it. You don't live here anymore, I said. He stared at the open door like it didn't belong there. Like if he ignored it long enough, the conversation would reset and fall back into something he could control. What? This is still my house, Caleb said finally, his voice tightening. My name is on the mortgage. I'm not disputing that, I replied evenly. I'm telling you that you're not staying here. His eyes narrowed slightly, searching for the version of me that would argue, that would raise her voice, that would give him something to push against. I didn't. I came back to fix this, he said, stepping closer, to take responsibility. You came back, I corrected, after living with your ex for a month and getting her pregnant. That's not how it happened, he snapped. I tilted my head slightly. Then explain it. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because there wasn't a version of that explanation that made sense. Not one that didn't collapse under its own weight. You're being cold, he said instead, shifting tone. Do you hear yourself right now? Yes, I said, very clearly. This is still our home. Our home, I repeated quietly, was the one you walked out of. His jaw flexed. I told you before you left what that meant, I continued. You chose to ignore it. I didn't think you were serious, he said. And for the first time, there was something close to honesty in his voice. I held his gaze. Serious doesn't require yelling, I said. Silence stretched between us. Then he changed tactics. What am I supposed to do? He asked, frustration bleeding through. Just disappear? Pretend none of this happened? No, I said. You deal with the consequences of what did. That's easy for you to say. It is, I agreed, because I didn't create the situation. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing once across the living room like he needed movement to keep from unraveling. You're really going to throw away 9 years, he asked, for one mistake? I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, because of how predictable it was. This wasn't one mistake, I said calmly. It was a series of decisions. You're twisting it. I'm simplifying it. He stopped pacing. This is about pride, he said. You don't want to look like the one who got, replaced? That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? I met his eyes. Respect. That landed, not dramatically, but enough. Because he didn't respond immediately. You're being cruel, he said finally, softer now. She's pregnant. I'm dealing with a lot right now. I let that sit for a second. Then I asked quietly, and what about me? He blinked. What about our daughter? His expression shifted, just slightly. Like he hadn't expected that question to come back to something so simple. I'm here now, he said quickly. That's what matters. No, I said. What matters is that you left. I came back. You came back because your situation there became complicated. His lips parted, but no words came out. You didn't come back because you realized what you risked, I continued. You came back because it stopped being convenient. That's not fair. It doesn't need to be fair, I said. It needs to be accurate. The room went quiet again. Heavy, but no longer tense. Just resolved. He looked at the open door, then back at me. So that's it? He asked. You're just done? Yes. No hesitation. No softening. Just truth. Something in his posture shifted then. Not anger. Not defensiveness. Something closer to unease. What am I supposed to tell people? He asked. There it was. Not us. Not our daughter. People. Tell them the truth, I said. His expression hardened immediately. You really want to do this? I already am. He laughed once, short and sharp. You're unbelievable. I didn't respond, because there was nothing left to clarify. He stood there for another few seconds, like he was waiting for something to change, for me to step back, for the door to close, for the version of this story he had imagined to reappear. It didn't. Finally, he grabbed the handle of his suitcase. The movement was slower now, less certain. You're making a mistake, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. No, I said quietly. I'm correcting one. He hesitated at the doorway. For a moment, I thought he might say something else, something real. But whatever it was, he didn't. He walked out. Not dramatically, not angrily, just tight-faced and unsteady. I closed the door behind him and locked it. The click sounded louder than it should have. Final. Immediate. Clean. I stood there for a second, my hand still on the lock, waiting for something. Relief. Anger. Regret. None of it came. Just stillness. Then I walked back to the kitchen, picked up my phone, and emailed my attorney. I kept it simple. I'd like to move forward. I attached screenshots, dates, messages confirming he had been living elsewhere. Facts, not emotion. When I picked up my daughter from school that afternoon, I didn't say anything. Not about him. Not about what had happened. Routine first. Stability first. She talked about her day. A spelling test. A girl in her class who cried during recess. Normal things. Important things. That night, Caleb called. Once. Twice. 3 times. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to discuss. The next morning, I called my attorney as soon as his office opened. I'm ready to file, I said. No hesitation. He asked a few questions. Any change in living arrangements? Any attempts at reconciliation? I answered clearly. He left voluntarily. He returned briefly. He's now gone again. There was a pause on the other end. That simplifies things, he said. By noon, I had signed the initial paperwork electronically. We filed on grounds that reflected what had actually happened. Not exaggerated, not minimized, just accurate. I requested primary custody, not out of spite, out of reality. Our daughter had been with me full-time for over a month. I also requested that all communication go through structured channels moving forward, not to punish him, to prevent this from turning into something chaotic. After that, I blocked him. Phone, social media, messaging apps, everything except email. And even that, I filtered. Not because I was angry, because I was done reacting. By mid-afternoon, he realized. 3 emails came in within an hour. The first was angry. You're humiliating me. The second shifted tone. I'm trying to handle a complicated situation. The third was strategic. Can we at least stay legally together for now, until things settle? I read that one twice. Not because I was considering it, because it told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about repair. It was about convenience. Image. Control, I replied once. You'll be served within the week. Any further communication should be about our daughter. Nothing else. That evening, another email came. 1 line. You're destroying this family. I stared at it for a moment, then closed my laptop. Because from where I stood, the destruction had already happened. I had just stopped pretending it hadn't. 3 days later, he was served. At Laura's apartment. I didn't arrange it that way. That was simply where he was living. According to the paperwork, she answered the door. That detail reached me through my attorney. Not him. Not her. Just fact. That night, an email came in. Long. Unfiltered. You embarrassed me. You could have warned me. You didn't have to do it like this. I didn't respond. The only message I answered that day was about seeing our daughter. I offered 2 hours. Saturday. A public park. Daytime. Neutral ground. His reply came quickly. This is degrading. It's temporary, I wrote back. Until things are formalized. He didn't deny where he was staying. He didn't argue about the location. Saturday came. He arrived 10 minutes late. Sunglasses, carefully composed. Like presentation still mattered. Our daughter ran to him, confused, excited. He knelt down, pulling her into a tight hug, his voice breaking just enough to sound genuine. I missed you so much. I stood a few feet away, not interfering, not participating, just present. For the first 30 minutes, he focused on her, asked about school, about her friends, about everything he had missed. Then slowly, his attention shifted toward me. We don't have to do this, he said quietly, stepping closer. Yes, we do. You're throwing everything away. No, I said, I'm letting it go. He lowered his voice. It was one mistake. I met his eyes. It was a pattern. He hesitated, then tried again. The baby might not even be mine. I held his gaze for a second, then asked calmly, do you expect me to take that risk? He didn't answer, because there wasn't an answer that made sense. When the 2 hours were up, I said goodbye to my daughter first, then to him. Clear, contained, final. On Sunday morning, an email came through. Subject line, we need to talk like adults. I almost didn't open it, but I did. I have an ultrasound appointment this week, Caleb wrote. We should go together. We need to discuss options. I read it once. Then again, not because I was confused, because I wanted to be sure I understood the assumption behind it, that I was still involved, that I was still someone he could loop into decisions that no longer belonged to me. I replied with one sentence. You should discuss options with the mother of your child. I closed the laptop after that. That was when the shift happened. Up until then, his messages had rotated between anger, justification, and strategy. After that, something cracked. That night, another email came. Longer, less controlled. Laura isn't reacting the way I expected, he wrote. She thought I'd handle everything differently. I thought she'd be more certain about what she wanted. I kept reading. I didn't plan for this. I thought helping her would, I don't know, fix something, give me closure. Closure. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. She's unsure about the pregnancy, he continued. I thought she would terminate. Now she's hesitating. It's complicated. Complicated. That word again. Always just vague enough to avoid accountability. I never meant for things to go this far, he wrote. That was the closest he got to admitting anything. Not regret for what he did. Regret for where it led. He mentioned our daughter once. Briefly. I never wanted to hurt her, but he never said he regretted leaving. Never said he regretted sleeping with Laura. Just the fallout. I responded once, carefully. I'm not reconsidering the divorce. Communication should remain about our daughter. Nothing else. 2 days later, he showed up at the house, unannounced. I was in the driveway, washing my car. The afternoon was quiet. My sister was inside with my daughter, helping her with a school project. I saw his car before I saw him. He stepped out slowly. No sunglasses this time. No performance. Just tired. Veronica, he said. I turned off the hose and faced him. What do you need? He walked closer, stopping just short of the driveway. She asked me to leave. Laura. Of course she did. I didn't react. She said she needs space, he continued. That this isn't what she signed up for. I let that sit. And? I don't have anywhere stable to go right now, he said, his voice tightening. I was thinking, maybe I could stay here, just temporarily, in the guest room. There it was. Not an apology. A request. We can keep things civil, he added quickly. For our daughter. I watched him for a long second. We can figure something out, he continued. I'll sign whatever you want. A postnuptial agreement, boundaries, anything. Anything. Now. After everything. I set the hose down carefully. No. He blinked. What? Oh, no, I repeated. His expression shifted instantly. You're serious? Yes. This doesn't have to be complicated, he said, frustration rising. It's temporary. It becomes complicated the moment you walk back into that house, I said calmly. I'm not asking for much. You're asking to undo consequences. That's not what this is. It is, I said, and I'm not participating in it. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. So what? I just figure it out on my own? Yes. That's it? He demanded. After everything we've built? I held his gaze. You're the one who left what we built. Silence stretched between us. Then he tried something different. Softer. Do you still love me? He asked. The question hung there. Heavy. Out of place. I didn't answer immediately. Not because I didn't know. Because it didn't matter anymore. That's not relevant to my decisions, I said finally. That landed harder than anything else I had said. I saw it in the way his shoulders dropped. In the way his expression shifted. Not angry this time. Just smaller. What am I supposed to do? He asked quietly. Find an apartment, I said. Call your family. Talk to Laura. Hire a lawyer. But not here. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. He stood there for another few seconds, then nodded once. Not in agreement, in understanding. Finally, he turned and walked back to his car. Alone. The legal process moved faster than he expected. Once he hired his own attorney, the tone shifted. Less emotion. More negotiation. He requested joint custody at first. Framed it as fairness. My attorney responded with documentation. Dates. Messages. The fact that he had voluntarily left. That our daughter had been living exclusively with me for over 2 months before filing. That his housing situation was unstable. That narrowed things quickly. Within 6 weeks, we had a temporary order. Primary custody with me. Scheduled visitation for him. Structured. Clear. He eventually rented a 1-bedroom apartment across town. Not with Laura. That situation had ended quietly. I didn't ask for details. I didn't need them. Financially, everything was straightforward. We sold the house, split the equity. I moved into a smaller place closer to my daughter's school, adjusted my work schedule, less travel, more consistency. Stability became the priority. A few days before the final hearing, he sent one last email. Long, reflective. I didn't think you'd actually walk away, he wrote. I read that line twice. I thought you'd cool off, that you'd choose to protect what we had. Protect. I didn't realize how serious you were. That part was true. At the courthouse, he tried one more time. Outside the courtroom. We can still stop this, he said quietly. People recover from worse. I looked at him. Our daughter deserves 2 parents under one roof. I shook my head. She deserves at least one parent who means what they say. That was the end of it. The divorce finalized without drama. No shouting. No last-minute reversals. Just signatures. Months later, the baby was born. His. There was a paternity test. Not because anyone doubted, because it needed to be official. Laura moved on. He moved on. And so did I. I don't hate him. I don't speak badly about him to our daughter. I show up on time. I keep communication clear. There's no revenge in it, just distance. The strangest part is how quiet everything feels now. The chaos didn't fade slowly. It stopped the moment I did. The moment I stopped debating reality and started acting on it. He thought I would negotiate with disrespect. I didn't. And once I walked away, there was nothing left to argue.